Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive? Today we've got some fascinating sources lined up, all about strange creatures. Some real, some imagined.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be a fun one. Always love diving into the weird and wonderful corners of the animal kingdom, both past and present.
All right, let's kick things off with a creature that's definitely captured the imagination. The Rhinogrades. You ever heard of these guys? Nose-walking mammals, supposedly from those mysterious Hiei islands in the South Pacific.
Ah, the Rhinogrades, a classic example of a well-constructed scientific hoax, actually. They were the creation of a German zoologist named Gerolf Steiner. A real playful mind he had.
He went all out, too. Created an entire taxonomy for them, like 138 species, 15 families, complete with detailed illustrations. I mean, if you just stumbled across his book, you might totally believe it was a real discovery.
His book, Bau und Leben der Rhinobradentia, really fooled a lot of people. It was written so seriously with such attention to detail. He even talked about how they might have gone extinct because of nuclear testing, which just added to the whole, like, oh my gosh, these were real vibe.
It's crazy how a good story can spread like wildfire, even in science. But it does make you wonder, why were people so ready to believe it?
I think it taps into that deep human fascination we have with the unknown, that possibility of discovering some totally new and mind-blowing form of life. It's like, we just can't resist a good mystery, even if it turns out to be a bit of a prank.
True, we always got to be careful about what we believe, even if it sounds scientific. But you got to admit, the Rhinogrades, they're pretty creative. Steiner had a real knack for imagining the unexpected.
Definitely. They still inspire artists, writers, even some scientists. It's a reminder that sometimes letting our imagination run wild can lead to some pretty interesting places.
All right, let's shift gears now from the world of imagination to a real-life creature that's, well, still pretty unbelievable. Seahorses. I mean, male pregnancy. That's just wild.
Yeah, seahorses are one of a kind. They belong to the Cygnathidae family, which also includes pipefish and sea dragons. And as far as we know, they're the only vertebrates where the males are the ones who carry the fertilized eggs and give birth.
You'd think, with a reproductive strategy that unique, they'd be like the poster children for monogamy. But turns out, it's not always so simple, is it?
Nope. Not so simple. While some species of seahorse do form pair bonds, they can be pretty promiscuous, even engage in same-sex interactions. It kind of reminds you that nature doesn't always follow the rules we humans like to make up.
It's fascinating to think about how their environment might affect their mating behavior. I mean, seahorses, they're not exactly known for their speed. And in the vastness of the ocean, finding a mate must be like winning the lottery.
That's exactly it. Their low population density, plus the fact that they're not strong swimmers, means every encounter is precious. So maybe forming long-term pairs is less about strict monogamy and more about just seizing the opportunity when it comes along.
Okay, time for a topic change. We've got some sources on dinosaur footprints, specifically a recent discovery in a park down in Texas. Sparked a lot of debate online about, how authentic these kinds of finds really are.
Well, Dinosaur Valley State Park down in Texas, it's famous for its dinosaur footprints. Not really surprising that new ones are being found, especially with things like drought-exposing areas that were hidden before.
I think a lot of that skepticism online comes from folks just not quite understanding how fossilization works.
Hmm.
It's hard to grasp how footprints could last for millions of years, right?
It is a remarkable process, but it needs a very specific set of circumstances to occur. So picture this. A dinosaur walking across a muddy riverbank. Those footprints are left behind, and then, this is crucial, that mud has to dry out and harden and fast.
It's like a race against time.
Yeah.
The elements have to lose to the mud. Mud needs to solidify before, rain or whatever washes away the evidence.
Exactly. Once that mud hardens, it basically acts as a mold, preserving the shape of those footprints. And over a lagoon time, layers of sediment build up, covering the trackway. Eventually, heat and pressure transform those layers into sedimentary rock.
So you've got these footprints, like locked in stone. And then millions of years later, geological events like erosion, they can expose those rock layers and voila, dino tracks are revealed.
Exactly right. It's not the actual footprint itself we're seeing, but that impression in the rock. It's like nature's way of creating a cast. And what's really cool is that these footprints tell us more than just the shape of the dinosaur's foot.
Oh, that's interesting. So what else can we learn from looking at, dino footprints?
Well, we can get clues about the dinosaur size, how much it weighed, even how it walked. Was it strolling, running, dragging its tail? And for the Texas footprint specifically, they're giving us a peek into what that environment was like millions of years ago.
It's amazing how these footprints can practically transport us back in time. Like, we can imagine these giant creatures walking around making those marks.
It really highlights how everything is connected. Geology, paleontology, even climate change. They all play a role in how we understand the past. Speaking of unique environments, let's head to the island of Socotra, home to some really unusual plants like the dragon's blood tree.
Oh, yeah. The dragon's blood tree. I've seen pictures. That umbrella shape is so striking. And of course, there's that, well, the blood-like sap. It's like something out of a fantasy novel.
Socotra is an amazing place. It's been isolated from mainland Africa for millions of years, became a real hot spot for unique species. And that dragon's blood tree, it's a prime example, gets its name from that bright red resin that oozes out if the bark gets cut.
It's like the tree is bleeding. I can't even imagine what people must have thought when they first saw that.
Yeah, it probably fueled all kinds of legends and stories. But beyond that dramatic appearance, dragon's blood resin actually has some practical uses too.
Oh, really? What's it used for?
It's been used in traditional medicine for ages, rituals, dyes, even varnishes. And the cool thing is, science is actually starting to back up some of those traditional uses.
So it's not just like a visual thing. There are actual properties in that sap.
Oh yeah, dragon's blood resin is chemically pretty complex. It's got compounds like flavonoids and chalcones, which give it that red color, and also have medicinal properties. People have used it for wound healing, to ease pain, even as an anti-inflammatory.
So the fact that the tree bleeds, it's not just a weird quirk. It's actually a survival tactic.
That's right. When the tree gets injured, that resin flows out and hardens quickly, creates a seal over the wound, protects it from infection. It's a pretty brilliant adaptation for surviving in Socotra's harsh environment.
We've gone from fictional nosewalkers to real-life bleeding trees today. It's amazing how diverse and surprising nature can be, even just within these first few sources.
And we're just getting started. There are so many more strange and wonderful creatures out there, each with its own story to tell. Makes you wonder what other weird and wonderful things are hiding out there, just waiting to be discovered.
Well, let's keep uncovering them. Next stop takes us way back to the age of dinosaurs.
Yep.
This time we're focusing on a real icon, Tyrannosaurus rex. Gotta love a good T-Rex.
The tyrant lizard king. Always a crowd pleaser. And for good reason. Their fossils give us so much information about, their anatomy, how they might have behaved, the whole environment they lived in. Those teeth, for instance, they're a real marvel of evolution.
Everyone knows T-Rex had big teeth, right?
Yeah.
But how big are we talking? And what made them so special, so different from, other dino teeth?
Oh, we're talking big. T-Rex teeth could be over a foot long, deeply rooted, serrated like steak knives. These weren't just for show, that's for sure. They were perfectly designed to tear through flesh and even crush bone. Incredible force behind those chompers.
A foot long? That's like longer than my hand. No wonder they were top of the food chain back then. But how do scientists actually figure out how hard a T-Rex could bite? Is that even possible?
It is. Paleontologists, they look at the skull, the jaw structure, where the muscles attached. They even use computer models these days to simulate, the whole biting motion. It's like digital paleontology. Pretty cool stuff.
So what kind of bite force are we talking? Could they really bite through bone like we see in the movies?
Oh, absolutely. Estimates put the T-Rex bite force at over 12,000 pounds per square inch. Enough to pulverize bones? No problem. Could even puncture the armor of some of their prey. And if you look at the wear patterns on their fossilized teeth, it confirms that, yeah, they were crunching bone on a regular basis.
12,000 pounds. That's just, I can't even wrap my head around that. Definitely not teeth you want to mess with. Makes you wonder what it would have been like to see a T-Rex in action, though.
Probably best we admire them from a safe distance, millions of years in the past. Speaking of glimpses into the past, we were talking earlier about those dinosaur footprints found in Texas. It's amazing how things like drought conditions can uncover these ancient treasures,
It's like nature's way of peeling back time, revealing a snapshot of a world that existed millions of years ago. It still blows my mind, though, how those footprints even survived that long.
It really is incredible. It takes such a specific chain of events. Imagine, right, a dinosaur walking along a muddy riverbank. Those footprints sink in, they're left behind, but then that mud has to dry it out and harden, and it has to happen quickly.
Yeah, it's a race against the elements. The mud has to win, has to solidify before rain or anything can come along and wash those footprints away.
Exactly. Once it hardens, the mud becomes like a mold, perfectly preserving the shape of the footprint. Over time, sediment buries it, layer upon layer. And eventually, with enough heat and pressure, those layers turn into, you guessed it, sedimentary rock.
So those footprints are literally encased in stone. And then millions of years pass, erosion does its thing, those rock layers are exposed, and boom, dino tracks.
That's it. It's not the actual footprint itself that we're seeing, but that impression in the rock, like nature made a plaster cast. And what's really cool is that these footprints, they don't just tell us what the dinosaur's foot looked like.
Oh, there's more to it than that. What else can we figure out from, a set of dino tracks?
We can learn about their size, their weight, even the way they moved. Were they walking, running, dragging their tails?
Mhm.
And for the Texas footprints specifically, they're helping us understand the ancient environment of that whole region, like
Right.
what kind of plants were growing there, what the climate was like.
It's like those footprints are a time machine, letting us visualize these amazing creatures moving through their world. So cool.
It really is. Shows how interconnected everything is. The geology, the paleontology, even the climate all come together to help us understand the past. Speaking of unique environments and amazing adaptations, let's switch gears to a creature that's both beautiful and a bit bizarre. The dragon's blood tree.
Oh yeah, the dragon's blood tree. With that iconic umbrella shape and that wall, that blood red sap, it looks like something straight out of a fantasy novel.
It's found on the island of Socotra, right? An absolutely unique place. It's been isolated from mainland Africa for millions of years, became this haven for unusual species, and the dragon's blood tree. It's a prime example. Gets its name, of course, from that bright red resin that oozes out if you cut the bark.
It's like the tree is bleeding. I can only imagine what people must have thought when they first came across that.
Oh, I bet it fueled all sorts of stories and myths. But there's more to dragon's blood resin than just its dramatic appearance. Turns out it has some really practical uses, too.
Really? Like what? What's it used for?
It's been used in traditional medicine for centuries, also for rituals, dyes, even varnishes. And the cool thing is science is starting to back up some of those traditional uses.
No, it's not just a visual thing. There's actual, medicinal stuff in that sap.
Yeah. Dragon's blood resin is chemically pretty complex. Contains compounds like flavonoids and chalcones, which are what give it that red color. But they also have medicinal properties. People have used it for wound healing, pain relief, even as an anti-inflammatory.
Wow, so that bleeding, it's not just some weird quirk. It's actually a survival strategy for the tree.
Exactly. When the tree gets injured, the resin flows out, hardens quickly. It creates a seal over the wound, protects it from infection. A pretty brilliant way to stay healthy in Socotra's harsh environment.
We've gone from giant T-Rex teeth to bleeding trees today.
Yeah.
Nature never fails to surprise, does it?
Never. And we've got plenty more to explore, ready to head to the Arctic.
Let's do it. Always been fascinated by narwhals. They look so mythical with that long spiraled tusk, like something straight out of a legend.
That tusk is one of nature's biggest mysteries. Can you believe it's actually a modified tooth?
A tooth. Seriously. It's longer than some cars I've seen. It looks more like a horn or some kind of spear. What kind of tooth grows like that?
Believe it or not, it's the left canine tooth. And for whatever reason, in male narwhals, it erupts right through the upper lip and just keeps growing forward in a spiral. And sometimes they even have two.
It seems like it would be more of a hindrance than a help, being that big. What could they possibly use it for?
That's what's baffled scientists for ages. Early theories were all about hunting, defense, maybe breaking ice. Turns out those were mostly wrong.
So what did he use it for? Spill the beans.
More recent research is pointing to a sensory function. The tusk is filled with millions of tiny nerve endings, which suggests it's incredibly sensitive to, changes in the environment.
A sensory function, like a giant antenna.
Yeah.
What kind of information would it pick up?
Scientists think it can detect changes in water temperature, salinity, maybe even the presence of prey. It might also play a role in communication or social interactions between narwhals.
Wow. So not a weapon, but a sensory organ. That's amazing. How do researchers even study that? Do they attach tiny sensors to the tusk or something?
Not quite. They have to observe narwhal behavior in the wild, analyze the chemical makeup of the tusk itself, and they use some pretty high-tech imaging to map out the nerve pathways inside. It's a tricky area of research, but we're slowly starting to unravel the secrets of this amazing creature.
From the icy Arctic, let's dive into some warmer waters. Specifically, the vibrant coral reefs. Our next creature, it's a real marvel of color and power. The mantis shrimp.
Mantis shrimp are crustaceans, like crabs and lobsters, but they have some truly incredible adaptations. Their eyes, for example, are unlike anything else on Earth.
I've seen videos of those guys. They're like tiny, colorful boxers with super speedy punches. Tell me more about those eyes.
Their compound eyes are on another level. They can see a wider range of colors than any other animal. We're talking ultraviolet, polarized light, the whole shebang.
That's like having built-in sunglasses A&D super spectrum vision. Why do they need to see so many colors?
It helps them communicate, hunt, and navigate those super complex coral reef environments. Those reefs are bursting with color and patterns. Mantis shrimp can see details that are totally invisible to us.
It's like they live in this technicolor world we can't even imagine. But
Yeah.
let's talk about those punches. How fast are those things?
Their punches can clock in at up to 50 miles per hour, and the force is so intense they actually create cavitation bubbles in the water.
Cavitation bubbles. I've never heard of that. What are those?
So when the mantis shrimp strikes, it creates a low-pressure area, makes the water vaporize into tiny bubbles, and then those bubbles collapse, releasing a huge amount of energy.
So it's not just the punch itself, but also these exploding bubbles that stun or even kill their prey. That's nuts.
It's an amazing feat of biomechanics. It's
Yeah.
how they can hunt things with hard shells like crabs, snails, even small fish. Their punch is so powerful it can even crack aquarium glass.
They're like tiny underwater superheroes with supervision and sonic punches. I'm amazed something so small can pack that much power.
It just shows you how evolution can come up with the most incredible adaptations, even in the most unexpected places.
From the Arctic to the coral reefs, we've covered some truly remarkable creatures today. It's a good reminder that there's so much left to discover about the world around us. What else have we got on this deep dive?
Let's go for something completely different. How about a real paleontological enigma? One that's been puzzling scientists for decades. The Tully monster.
Tully monster. Okay, that name alone, it's got me intrigued. Sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. What's the deal with this creature?
Well, the Tully monster, its scientific name is Tullymonstrum gregarium. It was this soft-bodied animal, lived about 300 million years ago in what's now Illinois. And here's the thing. We have thousands of fossils, all from this one location, but scientists have been arguing about how to classify it for over 60 years.
So we have tons of fossils, but nobody knows what it is. That's amazing. What makes it so hard to figure out?
It's like this weird mix of features that don't really fit neatly into any known animal group. Imagine a creature with like a torpedo-shaped body, stalked eyes, a proboscis with a claw-like mouth on the end, and a segmented tail fin.
That sounds like something Dr. Seuss would come up with. No wonder scientists are stumped. What are some of the ideas that have been thrown around? Like, what could it be?
Oh, there have been a lot of theories over the years. Some thought it was a type of worm, others a mollusk, an arthropod, even a vertebrate, but none of those explanations really fit perfectly with its strange anatomy.
It's like a real-life paleontological mystery. Are there any new clues? Has anyone cracked the case yet?
There have been some recent studies that have used, really high-tech imaging and chemical analysis, and they've provided some new pieces to the puzzle. Some researchers now think the Tully monster might be related to lampreys.
Lampreys. You mean those like eel-like things with the sucker mouths? That seems like a stretch.
Yeah.
How could something like that be related to the Tully monster?
I know, it sounds crazy, right? But there are some intriguing similarities. Both animals have a cartilaginous skeleton, a notochord, and just a single nostril. And some scientists think that the Tully monster's proboscis, that thing with the claw, might have actually evolved from something similar to a lamprey's sucker mouth.
Wow, that's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
It really makes you realize how much we still don't know about the history of life on Earth. Who knows what other bizarre creatures are out there waiting to be discovered, right?
Speaking of strange creatures with unexpected defenses, let's move on to a primate that's both adorable and, well, a bit dangerous.
The slow loris.
Slow lorises. Those cute little guys with the huge eyes, they always look so, I don't know, cuddly and harmless. What's dangerous about them?
Don't let that cuteness fool you. Slow lorises have a secret weapon.
Venom.
Venom? Seriously? I had no idea. How do they use it? Do they bite?
They have this special gland near their elbow that produces the venom. And get this. They lick the gland and mix the venom with their saliva.
So they basically weaponize their spit.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
But what do they use it for? Like, why do they need venom?
Mostly for defense against predators and also for competition with other slow lorises. They can deliver the venom through bites, but also just by grooming each other.
Wait, so they can poison each other while they're supposed to be, like, being nice and grooming? That's kind of sneaky. What does the venom do exactly?
It's a pretty complex mix of toxins. It can cause a lot of pain, swelling, tissue damage, even allergic reactions.
Wow, they're tougher than they look. Guess you can't always judge a book by its cover, or a loris by its cuteness, right?
Definitely not. It's a good reminder that even the most seemingly harmless creatures can have some surprising defenses.
From the mysteries of the Tully monster to the venomous defenses of slow lorises, we've covered some incredible creatures today. It just goes to show that nature is full of surprises, no matter where you look.
Absolutely. There's always something new to discover, something to make us question what we think we know, and something to remind us of the sheer wonder of the natural world. Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the strange and wonderful world of creatures, both real and imagined. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep that sense of wonder alive.